All right, so in our start project file here, I'm going to click on project 1 and dive into there. And here we are in our blank canvas. And what we're going to look at in this video is we're going to look at chops, which is channel operators. And this is a very important part of Touch Designer that we'll be using in a lot of different ways. And this really is the core of the procedural animation tool set that we have inside this environment. So let's just dive into this. I'm going to hit Tab and I'm going to go over to our chops. These are our green nodes. And the first one we want to do is we want to do a noise. So I'm going to type NOI and we get noise. And let me lay this down here and zoom in. All right. And so you can see that we just have some procedural noise that's being generated here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lay down another chop that we use a lot, which is filter. Lay that down here. I'm going to press play. And you can see that in this chop here, we see the chop over time. It's a fixed number of samples that are happening across here. And then when we add a filter to it, now we're actually just getting into more real-time, time-sliced world where we have just the immediate value at that point that's going through this filter process. And what this filter does in this context is, especially if we have a lot of noisy or erratic data, the filters can be really great to help smooth that out. I'm going to right click on the end of the filter and I'm going to type trail. And the trail node is great for analyzing data and debugging and also just making some really pretty graphs. So here now we have our noise over here that is being filtered. And now we're watching it over the period of 4 seconds here over its window length. Now if I were to bypass the filter, let me click on this little arrow here. You can see we get a noisier result, which is actually our noise over here running straight into the trail. But if I turn on the filter, you can see that that smooths out. If I click on the filter, and let me change the filter width to something even much more extreme, like 5. Now you can see we're going to get much more gradual curves. Like it almost looks like a sine wave in this window coming out of this really noisy information. So the trail is a great way to debug and see what's going on. Let me change this filter width down to 1. Okay, so we've looked at just some straightforward chops and how we can actually just create some noise and manipulate and view that data. And one of the great things here is this is just one channel of information, but one of Touch Designer's real strengths is having a lot of these going on at the same time. So what I'm going to do, first I'm going to pause the timeline. I'm going to go to our noise chop here and I'm going to go under its channel tab. And you can see channel name's Chan1, which is the channel that it's outputting. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have it create 10 channels just instead of 1 channel. So I'm going to delete the 1, add a bracket, and start with a 0, -9, and then end that bracket. Often in Touch, we aren't starting at 1, we're starting at 0. It's just a standard practice that I've picked up. And so if we set up our syntax like this with the 0 to 9 with these brackets, and we hit return here, you can see now we're generating 10 channels of noise. So now you can see that that propagates down the line. So now this filter is filtering 10 channels and the trail is trailing 10 channels. So now if I press play, we have the exact same setup, but just by changing the number of input channels, our system down the line is then processing all that information. So this is a great way to be able to build something, let's say a test system with a few different animation channels, and then you can upgrade that to hundreds or even thousands of channels if you're doing really elaborate work. All right, so that is a basic intro to chops inside Touch, and now we're going to move on to looking at SOPs.